My wife loves these Hallmark movies. They're Hallmark Christmas movies. And I talked to some of the girls at work, and they all love these Hallmark Christmas movies. And they are very, very cheesy quality. The writing is very cheesy. Um, they're in my opinion very lame. And they used to be back in the early 2000s, in the late 90s. Channels like A&E and TNT would make special movies. Okay, now Hallmark Channel puts them out regularly, but these were movies that just on occasion. So like, there's a Christmas Carol with Patrick Stewart is one that we watch, and I like it because it's actually kind of cheesy. The quality of the I guess the access to the studios they had were just cheap. Whereas you could tell there was a budget for certain things, but what's cheesy about it, like in all these movies, so you have this is taking place in, Christmas Carol's taking place in a very poor part of um, Britain, I guess. I don't know if it's London, whatever. But everybody's wearing, nicely pressed clothes that aren't even dirty. You know what I mean? Just really, really cheesy. And I remember it was 2004, maybe 2003 when I first saw the ads for Ike Countdown to D-Day. And it was a made for TV A&E movie, but I thought it was unique in that it was about the logistics leading up to D-Day. And I like Tom Selleck, so I was like, okay, Tom Selleck's a good actor. I mean, you get what you get with him, right? If you cast Tom Selleck, you're not getting someone who's stepping into the clothes of another character. They're not stepping out of their skin and going into another. You just get Tom Selleck, right? So if you like Tom Selleck, you're going to like supposedly whatever he's in. And in this case, he's playing Dwight Eisenhower. Now, Tom Selleck's a big guy, and Dwight Eisenhower was not. But he was able to pull off the look in many ways. Sometimes in the movie he's not able to, but sometimes he is. Um, Tom Selleck did the best he could, and he did a decent job. Anyway, back to the point here. This movie takes advantage of its cheesiness in that it never it never like steps outside of its own comfort zone. For example, since they have to use these particular sets to make it look like World War II, instead of having these transitions to scenes where they show troop movements or anything like that, they'll show stills from they're not it's not stock footage, okay, it's stills from set, that they've made themselves, but because it's stills it kind of sells the whole thing. It's still cheesy, but it sells it. So the quality of this is as high quality as you can ask for a made for TV movie. What fascinated me about this project is it's a war movie with absolutely not a single gunshot fired. This is not intentional. That wasn't the no one said, "Hey, let's make a war movie." You can tell it's not what they're trying to do. It's just not what the movie's about, even though it's about war. And I will say this too, if I'm trying to imagine someone trying to sell me on this movie and they're like, "All right, we want you to put your money into this movie." Oh, okay, what you got? Well, we want to show the logistics of D-Day. The logistics of D-Day. I mean, you have to be able to set. What is this going to be? A comedy? No, no, it's going to be a drama. A drama? What about troop movements? Come on! Like I would have just said no, never. Why would you waste any money on this? In fact, you can see why it's a made-for-TV movie. They're not going to blow an enormous. Paramount Studios is not taking this up, right? This was a real surprise at how good it was. I've now watched it since 2004 for I mean every fall I watch it almost. I skip it every once in a while, but just about every fall I watch it. I have several just to give you a little bit of background on me when it comes to these kind of things. I have certain seasons. There's certain movies I watch. So when it becomes fall, there's a movie, I'll watch Silence of the Lambs or something like that. Um, and I just have a history of doing that. And the turn of the season, I'll just pick one. Summer, Raising Arizona. Um, anyway, so this is one of my fall. Now, this will happen in the summer in the movie, but it feels like fall the way they filmed this. But I remember how I was able to watch the movie. So I saw the commercials for it, and I thought, this looks really good. And I went to a friend's house. She works for the cable company. I think she still does to this day. And we're sitting there, and I'm like, oh, have you seen the ads for this A&E movie that's coming out? And I wasn't really asking her because she works for the cable company. And she goes, are you talking about that movie Ike? And I was like, yeah, because she's interested in history. And I was like, yeah. I was like, that looks really good. And she goes, well, I got a surprise for you. She goes, well, she had a special DVD before the movie was released on A&E so they could promote the film. And she said, I haven't even watched it. You can have it. Here, I just saw the ads. I've got the movie in my hand. I can go watch it before it even releases. It was crazy. I don't know. It may have already been released. But I'm just sitting there. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm actually getting ready to go home tonight and watch this movie. I couldn't wait. And I didn't think it was going to be super good, but it turned out to be really good. So I want to just say a few more things about it before I wrap this up. 4 out of 5 stars. I can't give it 5 stars because the casting is an issue. So the man who plays Dougal looks exactly like Dougal in every way, shape, and form, plays him perfect. But Tom Selleck casts as Eisenhower. That's a real tough sell. There's a couple that are, so it's very hit and miss on the casting. Another thing is some of the drama. Don't get me wrong. This was a highly complicated plot, and how they managed to make it work, I'll never know. They brought together so many complex threads and found ways to simplify them and dramatize, to create drama out of them. And so I want to say up front, as good of a job as anyone could ask to do. Excellent. But some of it just misses. Just straight up misses. For example, Bradley is concerned with bringing his soldiers onto the beaches and bringing tanks onto the beaches. And Mallory is concerned with the airborne. And Bradley's constantly arguing with Eisenhower about making sure Mallory's soldiers are closer to the beachhead. It's really good drama. It's interesting. But Eisenhower's talking to Churchill, and the actor who plays Churchill doesn't sell him too well, unfortunately. But he's a good actor, but he doesn't sell Churchill well. And some of that's the dialogue just isn't very good. Too dramatic, But anyway, so he's arguing. So Eisenhower's worried about the condition of the beaches. Now, Bradley and the actor who plays Bradley plays the dad in Dexter, really good actor. So when they are together on the screen, they do a great job together. But he's really not worried about the beaches at all, but is constantly worried about the airborne. So Eisenhower's like, what about these beaches? He's always asking about the beaches. And it's like, well, if Bradley's this worried about Mallory's airdrops and he's not worried about the beaches, why would Eisenhower be worried about the beaches? It doesn't make sense. It's just trying to, this is called melodrama, when you create drama where there really shouldn't be. And don't get me wrong, that is not emblematic for this movie. In fact, there is a scene, I don't want to spoil it, even though I don't mind putting spoilers in these, especially for older movies. There is a scene at the very end that it gets me every time. It's very well done, and it just takes all of Eisenhower's concerns, and instead of telling you he's concerned, they show you that he cares, which is very important in a movie, to show the audience what's happening. Anyone can read about what's happening or hear people talk about what's happening. They have to show you, which is why this is a hard sell, right? You're going to show the logistics of D-Day? Come on. But I'll tell you something. They found a very creative way, and I don't know if this really happened or not, but they found a way to show you that Eisenhower cares about these soldiers. Very powerful scene. And it's one of the few outdoor scenes, and it's really well done. Like, it's not cheesy, or maybe my mind just can't see it as cheesy. I don't know. So generally speaking, the drama works. Taking these scenes and dramatizing them generally works. Another thing they do a lot of irony. They show you the personalities of these generals, and they do a very interesting job. They have this set of staircases, and they show one general come up the staircase, and it shows you learn a little bit about that general's personality as they're going to meet Eisenhower. Then they show the next general go up the staircase, and their personality is different. And you see how Eisenhower had to work with these really flamboyant and arrogant generals. For example, Montgomery, the actor they cast for him was perfect, acted well, looked just like him. They were trying to show how he was constantly pressuring Eisenhower to push, because that was his personality. Now, two historical figures are really given a poor light in this film. The first is General Patton. He's poorly cast. One of my favorite actors, actually, that I've been watching my entire life, and he's still acting to this day, but he's not the right person. They just put him in this role to make sure he's Major Dad. If you've ever seen the television series Major Dad, he's just... Anyway, Patton is played out as kind of a racist, and he's not given a favorable light. And the other one, of course, is de Gaulle. De Gaulle is played out as being too nationalistic. So you can kind of see this sort of element of D-Day is about everyone working together across international lines to meet this threat. It's fine. It's not that big. That's not the theme they're trying to play out, actually, but you can read that into it a little bit. That really, honestly, they're not trying to play that out. That's not a big factor, but you do see it, through the personalities of these generals. But very creative way to do that. Again, probably not their intention. It's sort of the byproduct of what they're saying. So the personalities of the generals, all of the logistical problems that he's facing, the politics, dealing with FDR, dealing with Churchill, what that means for one person to be in charge. In fact, with de Gaulle, he's saying, look, I will not accept a supreme commander. Won't accept it. And so how does he deal with that? Pretty interesting. So it's a very good combination of like showing you the historical complications of how to make these logistics work in this movie on the one hand, but on the other hand, showing you this and giving you drama. One of the things was the issue with the weather. How do you dramatize that, right? How do you show the issues with the weather? And they do it with irony, and it's really interesting. It's a good comedy moment, but it's also interesting where you have everyone saying what they think can happen, and the only way they know that they can make anything happen is with the weather. And so he's constantly working with this group captain that's doing weather. And just like for all of us, the weather doesn't cooperate with the weatherman. And he's like getting really frustrated that it's not happening. And at one point, he says, look, the weather's going to be like this. And then he comes in the next day and he's soaked. And Tom Selleck plays the role perfect. He looks at him, sees that the weatherman's soaked. He goes, I find this to be very depressing. It's really well done scene. But more to the point, it shows a kind of an expertise to let you see that things aren't working out the way. So it's interesting because it's like you're seeing, well, things aren't working out the way you want them to with the weather. Is this weather going to hold right? All those questions are being asked right there on the screen without saying a word. It's really a mark of really good storytelling. Great movie. If you are tired of war movies, but you would be interested if somebody did something different, this is right up your alley. I'm not a big action movie fan. And there's So a lot of war movies just focus a lot on action. None of that here. It's all about the story all the time. And it tells a heck of a story from the logistics of D Day, believe it or not. It takes sometimes a risk to do something different in order for you to get something different that actually works. And this is a rare occasion where that was the case. Probably wouldn't normally review a made for TV movie, but this is just an exception that deserves. There's not very much on it on YouTube or anything, so it deserves at least somebody to say, hey, this is a good movie that people ought to give a chance to.